Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back to the program. And welcome to our discussion right here on the African Affairs desk right here on Salam Media. Now, holders of the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit, about 178,000 of them, were given the status to legally live, work, and study in South Africa. This was about 10 years ago after the post election violence of 2008. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has says cabinet has taken a decision not to renew the permit. The decision has been challenged in court by Zimbabwe Exemption Permit Holders Association, the Helen Suzman Foundation. Now, the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit Holders Association say that this decision to not renew the permit is the biggest fraud by an African government against citizens from a neighboring country. And the reason for this, they say, is that they have been intimidated by the Home Affairs Department to drop the case or to withdraw the case because the Department of Home Affairs has failed to account for the hundreds of millions of rand paid over 10 years. What is likely to happen with this, and who do we believe? Let's check in with Dr. Vusi Sibanda. He is the chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, and he joins me now from a load-shedded part of Johannesburg. Dr. Sibanda, thank you very much for your time and welcome to the program. Ah, there you are. I can see you. You are speaking to us despite the load shedding. Oh my goodness. Am I joking about the load shedding? There you are. Please go ahead.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
I'm not sure. Good evening. Okay, sounds better.
Much better. Go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Yes.
Doctor,
I didn't hear that question.
Okay, just for the sake of those that have just joined us now, the issue here is what are the political reasons for the discontinuation of the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit, if at all they are?
Well, look, in our view, yes, indeed, they are very, the reasons are very political. And the political reasons are simply that the African National Congress has been losing votes since 2016, especially in the local government municipality, as well as the national elections in 2019, where it just barely, garnered 50%. So obviously what has been happening now after the local government elections, it is very clear that the smaller parties that are coming, with the nationalist and right-wing attitude that is anti-migrant, are obviously seeming to be garnering more support. And unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that the ANC is not losing votes because of these particular sentiments, but it is one of those fringe elements that seem to be more spoken about. And as a result, the government of ANC believes that that's the reason why it is losing votes, but it is losing votes because of poor service delivery since 1994, and things are worse. Look at what is happening with ESCOM and other areas, like municipalities and the police and so forth. So the major reason, therefore, is simply that the ANC, which is the governing party, has been losing votes, and it thinks that it can salvage that, obviously by passing the blame to migrants and saying, look, we're going to kick out those that we can, and particularly the Zimbabweans, because there are too many of them.
Now here's my question with regards migrants. What percentage? I mean, I don't know if studies have been done, and I'm sure they have been by people who are well known, that know this issue. What percentage of migrants are there in South Africa, and is it enough to erode an economy and take jobs from locals? That's just my general question, Doctor.
Look, one of the countries that is the biggest consumers of migrants in the world is the USA. The USA consumes a very huge, percentage of migrants, but it has got a leading, economy. And the UK has been doing the same in Australia. And obviously, when we look at South Africa, the percentage of migrants that are in South Africa, according to studies, is barely 2 million, according to Stats SA. And therefore, to really think that, these migrants are going to, cause, load shedding and poor service delivery, and ensure that, there is unemployment at the rate at which, the country is going is fallacious, and is just, something to try and dissuade, the voters from the fight. If the government succeeds in stopping, migration, which is very unlikely, it is only going to be a situation where, again, the wars are going to continue because people will not get any better service delivery. The government has not been building, for example, stations, power stations since 1994, and yet it has been building a lot of RDP houses and trying to electrify, rural areas and so forth. Now, definitely that means demand has become so high, and yet supply has never changed. And those are the reasons why the country has got the problem that it's got, and definitely not migrants.
Mm-hmm. But what do you make, Dr. Vusi, about that anti-migrant sentiment that we find on social media, in our streets with Operation Dudula? For some reason, South Africans or those people that follow those groups or adhere to that kind of mentality, they are convinced that the problems of this country are because of migrants. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, that is the case specifically because, to start with, you've got leaders that speak along those lines, and a lot of our people, because of lack of civic education, they always follow what the leaders are saying. So if they've got a particular leader who speaks and there is a problem, they want to try and find a solution, and as a result, they believe that the solution is going to be found, by ousting, migrants. But I am certain, as much as we have heard from quite a lot of people, that in a country with 60 million, it is even not possible to think that 5 million South Africans believe, that kind of an assertion. It is these groups, and when you look even amongst themselves, when they have this discourse, you realize that a greater bulk, of people that basically, are saying that sentiment, it's just the same people over and over, even when you look at social media. So there is no new people that are coming in saying that. And if you look at the Democratic Alliance, it used to speak about migration as a problem and the poor, porous borders. But recently we've had their statement, which was very clear on migration, to show that, look, it was just a political statement, but it's not reality. So the truth of the matter is that, the number of people that really believe that rhetoric and are convinced about it is much, much smaller than, we really believe it is.
Okay, now let's turn our attention to the ZEP, the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit. It was given out for a particular reason, and I believe a good reason. It was a good reason. It was a neighborly thing to do. Small amount, minute amount of people, 178,000. Now the government is saying that, look, by December you have to apply for another permit. If you can't, then you must go back home. Why do you think the ZEP has solicited so much of emotion? Because here we have the Minister of Home Affairs, telling people on national television that certain group have withdrawn the case, the legal challenge, and he's denouncing another group that has instituted legal challenges against the decision. I'm talking about the Helen Suzman Foundation. So it's become this political football. But I'm really interested in your interpretation of those events.
Well, look, I think clearly the reason why the Minister of Home Affairs goes on to, speak so bad about those that are challenging that decision is that the minister knows that he does not have, anything tangible on what he's saying. He's actually just blowing hot air. He knows that he has not followed procedure. He has actually come, I think I listened to him, I think yesterday or so on Talk 702, where he was now clearly saying after the decision was made, it is only then that they started issuing the letters, to notify people that. And this is one of the things that has been challenged in court, that in terms of PAJA and Section 33 of the Constitution, you don't do things after the fact, because this is what he did. So the minister has not followed, procedure in even trying to cancel, those permits. But more to that, even his claims, that in the cancellation, he has not taken into consideration the fact that there were asylum seekers that moved from the asylum seeker system or the refugee system to these, dispensation permits. That is the first thing. And the second thing is the first batch of permits that were issued in 2009, 2014, which was the DZP, they did not have the condition that, people would not be allowed to apply for permanent residence thereafter. It was an afterthought that was only done in the second batch from 2015. Now, there is, therefore, a legal expectation based on the first promise that was made, from the Zimbabwean people, that obviously if they've stayed 5 years and they're working and gainfully employed, they would have qualified, for permanent residence. And we also know that South Africa did the same thing in 1997. So even those people that left their asylum seeker documents, they left that because they thought that this was a better regime of permits. And now this is turning out to be something else. Now, what normally happens in, humanitarian or human rights-based law is that when, people accrue a better right as a result of action, that is done, then normally the better right exceeds to any other right. So this is why you see a lot of people are quite, upset about this particular situation, because there has been very little to no consultation at all to try and discuss these particular rights that the Zimbabweans have accrued. And as a result, that's why we've got all these court challenges.
And I was speaking about those court challenges. Which one? I mean, the one court challenge that has caught my attention quite succinctly is the one that the one that Advocate Simba Chitando is steering, and he alleges that the Home Affairs Department is in trouble, and they're trying to obfuscate the fact that they cannot account for hundreds of millions of rand paid for by Zimbabwe Exemption Permit holders. What can you tell us about that?
Well, yes, true. Look, the Zimbabwe, exemption permit holders, and I think that, the figures, the calculations, considering that the minister has had to put in figures to show that, they requested so much money in order for them to basically, run the system. And as a result, one of the reasons why they want that system not to continue is because they don't have, the budget, obviously to finance it. And those calculations come in handy, to obviously say, look, these particular permits were self-sustaining because money was paid towards them. Now, obviously, the argument from the department could be that, look, that money was paid to VFS because they are the ones that are basically, doing that work, for every permit that is processed, because not only for Zimbabweans, so that money is revenue that is used to pay for its ordinary expenses, but there is additional income. But that becomes an argument for another day, because then it means there might be a need to try to crunch the figures in that particular area. So I think that Advocate Chitando is actually, pursuing, an angle that is quite interesting, considering that I think, he's pointed to the fact that during the Zondo Commission, there's been money, because one of his allegations that there's money that went missing that came from the permitting. So that could be quite interesting to ascertain that if indeed there is an allegation, or there is a part of the Zondo Commission that looks at money, that went missing from, permitting, one would be quite interested to find out that where did that money go, and which money is being referred to. Is it, part of the money that comes from the dispensation permits, which has been a lot of money, considering that, every person has had to pay, over 1,000 rands during the 3 successive, applications that took place.
Now, the Zimbabweans are facing another election, Dr. Sibanda, next year, 2023. The Zimbabwe Exemption Permit was given after post-election violence back in early 2008. Are you not concerned? Because even as we're leading up to this election, we are already seeing, opposition members being abducted. We're already seeing opposition activists, going missing. Are you not concerned that when these permits expire in December and a whole lot of Zimbabweans get deported, they are going to be going from the fire into the frying, what did they say, from the frying pot into the fire, and from the frying pan into the fire? Isn't that so unfair? I mean, like, what is going on?
Well, look, the reason for issuing the permits in the first place was that, a lot of Zimbabweans had come in, and the minister said it was for economic reasons. And when we know that is not very true, the minister is very economic with the truth when it comes to that, because the truth of the matter is basically that it was after the serious violence that took place in 2007, 2008. There had been violence starting from 2000, but it escalated, when President Mugabe lost the election to Morgan Tsvangirai in 2008, leading to the GNU. And we have seen again in 2018, 6 people, were killed, and live ammunition was used during those elections because of the hotly contested elections, as a result of the opposition party, which we think it's actually going to be more contested in the forthcoming election. So the minister, when he says that the conditions in Zimbabwe have basically changed, he is being very economic, with the truth, and he's just trying to, cover, his desire to cancel the permits without really looking at the major reasons why the permits were issued, and the fact that those conditions have not changed at all. If the permits were issued for that particular conditions, and those conditions have not changed, and why would one then want to say, now let us change that? Yes, one could say it is their prerogative because they've got a country and they've got their own problems, but that's why we would have to go to the next level of questions to say, as a result of the continued stay of the people in South Africa, for over 13 years, and those that have got asylum documents, some of them starting in 2000 up to 2022, which is about already, 22 years. and then you all of a sudden say they've got to go back. So have those people not acquired a better right to remain in the country? So indeed, yes, trying to get people out, it's unlikely, because in fact we're going to have more people coming into South Africa, running away from the violence that is going to start taking place in Zimbabwe, in view of the next elections.
All right, now, Dr. Sibanda, my final question: how about the other permits? Because the minister keeps saying that, look, the ZEP is going to expire in December, and between now and then, you have to apply for another permit. If you don't qualify, go home. What has been the experience of Zimbabweans trying to apply for other permits? Those that have tried to.
Those that have tried to, they tried. I mean, the minister actually said it, I think, in his last interview, that, look, if you don't qualify for a waiver, you may try and find out. But we even wrote to the minister to find out that what waiver are you talking about? What other means? Because South Africa, for example, has moved away from the general work permit, regime to the critical skills permit. And the critical skills permit, even itself now, it requires you to have a permanent job in order for you to get one. So the truth of the matter is there is no other permit except for somebody that has, obviously married into South Africa. That is the only other option, because the minister is also lying again when he says that those that married, South Africans could not apply, because a lot of people that married locally, they were moving from the, ZEP because they would simply get a waiver, and then, they'll then get permanent residence. So the minister talks about things as if he's been running the department, I think, from a remote distance, where he's so removed from the truth that is actually taking place, on the ground. So there are no other, permits that, can actually assist Zimbabweans, especially the people that are working, considering that they don't have special skills. They were issued those permits because ordinarily they could not qualify for the general work permits. So that is a non-fact.
And this is my absolute fear when it comes to December, Doctor. Are we going to see huge programs of xenophobic violence, telling South Africans, saying that, like, time is up, y'all need to go home? The Dudula movements, I know we spoke about it, but I mean, are you not afraid that this dithering by the Home Affairs Department and the seemingly irresponsible statements of the Home Affairs Minister, is it going to cause more harm, more hurt for Zimbabweans living in South Africa, legally or illegally?
True, it is. I mean, we're likely, we're going to see a lot of, challenges, and a lot of Zimbabweans might find themselves under attack. And you might have, the country turned into serious chaos, because, if you are trying to push people that have nowhere else to go, you might end up finding, the very same Zimbabweans also tending to try and defend themselves. And it might create a situation that is not, easy to control, considering that, gun laws in South Africa, are not so strongly, controlled. And people can easily, get these guns and all that. So we are worried that, the government is actually turning the country into turmoil, and the country is already on a knife edge, considering the situations that are taking place here. So, I mean, if we've seen the attacks, I mean, the 2021, lootings and all that, and then we want to bring in this chaos again in regards to Zimbabweans, it will escalate to involve all foreign nationals. Because no one is going to go out there on the streets and saying, are you Zimbabwean? But they're going to be looking at a foreigner. And then you're going to have a situation where the country is going to be, very, very sensitive when it comes to issues of migrants. And it's going to be migrant against local. And yet because look, the issue is, you've got a lot of migrants that have naturalized in South Africa that, have families. And South Africans don't have problems. They're marrying, non-nationals. And they're living quite happily. So you're going to have a situations where South Africans that are married to non-nationals, have good relations, are also going to be starting, to fight against their own, who are actually, xenophobic. So this is going to be more chaotic than we actually anticipating.
Well, Dr. Sibanda, there you're giving us a lot to think about there. Thank you very much for your time. We certainly hope the lights come back on very soon, but I do appreciate you speaking to us at this time.
Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening, and thank you to viewers as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vusi Sibanda, there, chairperson of the African Diaspora Forum, talking to us there about what he fears should this chaos with the Zimbabwe exemption permits continues unresolved. There's a number of court cases. There's the Helen Suzman Foundation. There are the Zimbabwe Exemption Permit Holders Association, who are saying, what about the money? And of course, there's that issue as well of Zimbabweans that are in limbo, just don't know what to do. And then, of course, on top of that, there's xenophobia and there's Operation Dudula. I'm not saying Operation Dudula is xenophobic. I'm saying there's xenophobia and Operation Dudula. So it's going to be very difficult times for Zimbabwean people. And of course, we certainly hope that what Doctor is saying does not come to pass. and we certainly hope that the government gets a handle on this. The only way for this situation to actually improve is for the political and economic situation in Zimbabwe to really get better, and for people to just go home and continue to rebuild or build their country. Because really, if the conditions are bad, if the political situation is precarious, if you can't buy food for your family, if you cannot, realize the value for your money, then you're obviously going to go look for greener pastures elsewhere, whether it's in South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, anyway. The opposite is true. When lots of Zimbabweans growing up in the early 80s and 90s, they didn't even think there would ever be immigrants. But today, Zimbabwe is probably one of the nations with the most amount of immigrants or migrants or people who have emigrated rather to other countries. Allah Ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. Well, as we said, we aren't having Islamic finance segment today for reasons beyond our control. But inshallah, this segment of the program will continue next week. So for myself and Brother Sadiq, shukran lakum for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.